I would say I use temperature control for almost all of my wines. So again, if somebody were to kind of classify me against low intervention winemakers, that would be a mistake. It's a selective use of particular kinds of intervention. So in the new winery that I started working in last year and worked in this year, we have a cold room for white fermentations, and the cold room is set. Last year set at 56, and we decided that led to stuck fermentations, that it was too low. So we set it at 62 this year, and I tried to keep white wine fermentations from going above that. So I use temperature control during somewhere between most and all white wine fermentations. Almost every red wine goes through an extensive cold soak. So this one 11 days using glycol chillers in a stainless steel tank. The next wine that we tasted was made in puncheons, but I used an extensive amount of dry ice in the puncheons to make the cold soak extend to 7 or 8 days. And then in and then I would say starting in 06, all of my red wines are also heated. And that was not true before 06. And one of the reasons is I made a Cabernet in 05 that I thought was really deficient. And I learned from speaking with a lot of friends that one of the sources of the deficiency was probably that I had not gotten the must temperature up high enough to extract the flavors and the tannins that I wanted to extract. And it's funny, I knew this from working at Luna. Like, there were things that I did at Luna that I did because they were expected and without my having questioned them. And when I was making wines on my own, I threw all those out and threw out the baby with the bathwater. Instead of questioning things and keeping the things that deserve to be kept, I just threw everything out. So I had to work back towards heating the red wine. So I would say, I think it's true that we heated every red wine, including the Pinot, in 08. Does that seem right? Yeah. So what I mean by heating is so that there's not a long lag phase from the cold soak to the middle of the primary fermentation. As soon as you decide that the cold soak is either ended on its own or that you want to end it, then I immediately heat the wines to 86 if I can. That's the target temperature. And I allow the fermentation to start at 86. And then if necessary, I'll boost it to get it close to 100. And the idea is to get it to peak close to 100. And then if necessary, sustain it to keep it above 86 for a week or 10 days or something like that. And then once the fermentation is over, unless the wine seems deficient in some way, it's allowed to just remain at whatever temperature it's at. But if it seems deficient in the sense that there's maybe not as much tannin extraction as I had hoped for, or the wine seems slightly watery or something like that, I'll probably try to sustain the temperature. And what we do now, almost all the red wines are made in small fermenters, like 500 liter, 600 liter puncheons. What we do now to sustain temperatures is just to put a tarp over all the puncheons and put space heaters out. What we do to get the wines up to temperature is we have not a sophisticated, but an expensive heating coil. And you submerge the stainless steel heating coil in a vat of hot water, and then you pass the wine in the course of a pump over through the heating coil in the hot water. And I've made a lot of really severe mistakes doing this because I'll put the water in the bath too hot, and I'll pasteurize the wine. So in 07, I pasteurized half of the red wine that I made.
What temperature?
At about 100, 101. And with commercial yeast, most commercial yeast can stand temperatures of 100 or 101, but if you're using native yeast, you just don't know. And in 07, most of the yeast that I had at my disposal were more temperature sensitive. So what I found was I would get these tremendous initiations of the fermentation, probably from yeast that were on the one hand temperature resistant, but not alcohol resistant. So as the alcohol went up, they would die off, and then the ones who should have taken over, they were dead. Yep. Yeah. So this year we didn't have any stuff fermentations, but we for sure stunned a couple by heating them too high. Yeah.